What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here today for this Sunday weekly market wrap up, news catch up, this, that, the other thing, whatever we want to call this little show that we've been doing for quite a while now. Actually, now that I think about it, I'll be going on 3 years pretty soon here. 2.5 years that I've been doing this Sunday weekly wrap up show. I started it shortly after the YouTube channel started up, so that's kind of interesting, kind of crazy when you think about how time flies. Speaking of time flying, let's just go ahead and dive right in. The biggest story of the week was the Luka Logoman. And, I agree with most of the other content that's been put out about this recently from some friends of the channel. Is it really that big of a deal? Not in the grand scheme of things. Does it affect us, the normal collectors? Does it not? Probably not in any real way. The only thing that you could argue would maybe whether it sold way high or way low, whatever the vibe take would be after that, because there'd be a bunch of content made about it. I mean, there's already a bunch of content made about it now, but the spin on it, like if it went higher or finished even, oh, look at how strong everything is, we're doing great. Or if it tanked really hard, the opposite would be true. There'd be a bunch of content out there about oh, look at how terrible this thing did. It's all going to zero, crash and burn, get out now, sinking ship, this, that, and the other thing. Quite frankly, it only dropping, I think it dropped 30%. I think that's actually pretty strong, to be quite honest with you. Bobbles has talked about this. A bunch of people talked about this. This card sold at the peak. Literally the worst time you could have bought a card, February 2021. And it sold at, we don't know if this is the worst time to sell a card because we don't know what the next month, 6 months, a year looks like before the general economy kind of stabilizes. But let's just call it a not great time to sell a card. So the fact that it only went down 30%, I actually think is pretty good in the grand scheme of things. Most stuff has gone down way more than that. Most Luka stuff, if you looked at silver prisms, optic hollows, just general, base prisms, base optics, select, his more commonly transacted cards have gone down way more than 30%. Most sports cards in general, if you pretty much look at, other than maybe some true blue vintage, I'd say most cards that you looked at purchased in February 2021 and ran the charts and graphs through today are probably down more than 30%. Probably down a lot more than 30%. Maybe we'll look at that in a video next week. Kind of dig into that a little bit more and just see exactly how far some of this stuff has dropped from the peaks of the market. But, that's that sale. There was a bunch of other stuff that sold in that PWCC premiere. Bryce Harper, 101 Superfractor, a bunch of other cool stuff. It's hard for me to comment on the pricing on the high-end stuff because it's so far out of my league. Most of the stuff that I buy is under $1,000 with the occasional, I'll go above that if I really want the card, really like the card. But generally speaking, most things that I spend my money on are under $1,000. Comic books, I'll go above that for certain things as well. But I think that's where most of us sit. I don't want to speak for the audience, but, curious in the comments down below, where do most of you all, where do you boys and girls spend your, what's your price range? 500,000, 150. I'm genuinely curious because I really don't know. YouTube analytics don't tell me, what price point of cards that you buy. Maybe I'll run a poll on this too, but just give me a vibe check in the comments down below. So don't really have anything else spectacular to add to this. Like I said, this horse has kind of been beaten. We'll beat one more horse to death here in a second, but wanted to lead off with this one because it was the main story this week. So in regards to vibe checks, the Chicago Sports Spectacular is going on this weekend. I briefly considered going to that show. I just did not have time, running around getting ready for the holidays and coming off one of my busier months at work. And my wife's traveling a bunch. Just a whole lot of nonsense prevented me from getting out to that show, though I did briefly consider it. If anyone was at that show, once again, vibe check in the comments down below. Please let us know. How is pricing? How is foot traffic? I did talk to some people and look through social media. It looked busy. Every photo that I saw, every little Instagram reel, I did talk to a couple dealers. They all said foot traffic was heavy. One of the dealers that I talked to said stuff was moving quite well, sub $1,500. It's a dealer that goes to a lot of the regional shows in this area that I talk to quite often, so I trust his word for it. But he said basically anything under $15 was moving pretty well, which feels like a pretty good price point. And, as always, it comes down to how you were priced. So I'm wondering if, I'm almost curious, and there's really no way to know this other than just kind of getting a feel for, the room, but, obviously much more than just the room. If dealers are finally starting to come to the realization that I don't want to say that the party's over, but just like, you know what? I'm into it for X. All these guys on YouTube that say it, they're right. It doesn't mean shit. It's not going back to that number. So I just need to take what I could get out of it and just move on to the next thing. I feel like the longer that we go in this current market cycle, the more people that are going to come around to that way of thinking or be forced into that way of thinking. And we'll see if that starts to play out at shows. Foot traffic at shows and stuff have been good. Pricing's been so far off. It's hard to tell if people are buying or not because, pricing's so far out of whack to what's actually going on in the real world that a lot of deals just don't get done because people don't want to move. But I'm wondering if dealers are starting to feel the downward pressure. If you're not priced correctly and you're setting up at show after show after show, not selling anything, you would think at some point in time you'd look in the mirror and be like, I guess I need to change something up. Let's try maybe pricing at comps. We're heading into the holiday season. People want cash. People need cash. Cash is king right now. People are starting to, unfortunately, we're starting to hear saber rattling, across the country and like in regards to layoffs at companies. We're starting to creep into that territory. That's going to put more pressure onto the market. And I just wonder if people realizing like, hey, someone offering me a very fair offer at 80 to 90% comps on a card, I should just take it and move on. I don't know if we're seeing that or not. Once again, if you were in Chicago, feel free to drop any knowledge on how that show went down below. I'm just going by the limited access that I had to people that I know were in the room where it happened. Quote Hamilton. Next up, let's beat another dead horse. And I only want to spend a minute on this. The whole Nat Turner PSA thing. I've done multiple videos on this already. Just to kind of put a bow on this, because I think people were a little confused. I don't want to say confused, but maybe didn't quite understand my take in the last video. Here's how essentially I'm going to break this down in like 60 seconds or less. Do I think the initial grade Nat got was biased towards Nat? The original PSA 10 with the chunk on there, the one that we're seeing on the screen. Do I think the graders in the room knew that that was his card when Nat walked into the building to be graded? No, I absolutely do not think that. I do not believe that when that card was first submitted, the grading floor had any idea that it was his card. Did PSA make a massive error missing this? Did BGS make a massive error missing this? Yes, 1,000%. 1,000%. Huge mistake. Now, let's take it one step further. Did Nat get preferential treatment when he walked it into the grading room? 1,000% yes. 1,000,000% yes. Do I think it influenced the grader's decision? I have no idea. I really don't. I can't read the grader's mind. But he 1,000,000,000% got preferential treatment when he walked the card into the grader's room and said, hey, what happened to this? Was there a better way he could have handled it? Maybe. Probably. I don't know what that way would have been. I had to sit down and really put some thought into it to kind of like blow this whole thing out and show it from start to finish so the conspiracy theorist tinfoil hat brigade can calm down and get their answers. I'll give him some credit for at least addressing it and not just sweeping it under the rug and never responding back to it, which he could have done. So that is my general take on that. I do not believe he got preferential treatment on the first grade. I do believe he 1,000% got, I'm not going to say a preferential grade, but preferential treatment on the second time because he clearly walked into the grading room and handed the person the card. No one else can do that. Probably no one else at PSA can even do that, or collectors, whatever you want to call it. Maybe like 2 other people. Who knows? Now, there's been discussions lately, and I really don't know how to handle this one. I really don't. I don't know a great way to do it. I think AIH has talked about this. I think Dan the Cardman's talked about this. I think Ziggy talked about this. A few others. Should employees of a grading company be able to grade cards at said grading company? And I don't know each individual grading company's policies and procedures on this. I've heard tell. AIH just talked about some collectors' employees cannot. I would imagine it would come down to if you're an actual grader on the floor, you probably can't. But if you work in marketing, you probably can, which on paper makes sense. And on one hand, I get the whole the whole take that no, if you work at a grading company, you should not be able to utilize their services. Cool. Like, I get that you want to come out and have that stance. I completely understand it. I don't necessarily disagree with it. But on the flip side, I have no idea how in the hell you would enforce that. Because someone could just submit the cards through a group submitter or through someone else for them. It's not like grading is this big, huge lockdown system that only a handful of people can submit. Someone can hand those cards off to their brother and sister, submit under that name, use their wife's name to submit from, ship it to a PO box or something like that. Once again, they could just go through a group submitter if they want to head that route, and there would be no way in hell to know that those cards were coming in and out of the building unless they posted them on social media. If they were dumb enough when they got them back to be like, hey, look at my new PSA submission reveal. Here's my YouTube video on it. Sure, they get busted that way. But to me, that's the problem with the whole thing. And my guess why most because I don't know of any company that completely shuts it down across the board that no one's allowed to use it. But my guess is that's the reason, is because enforcement on it would be near impossible. Now, is that a good excuse? No. Is there a way they could probably do it? Sure. Maybe. And once again, I don't know how you would stop that under those terms. And this reminds me of I used to play a lot of DFS back in the day. And initially, employees of the DFS companies, Daily Fantasy Sports, DraftKings, FanDuel, etc., were able to play on their own sites and other players' sites. And I forget the specific incident, and if someone remembers, they can put it in the comments down below. Something happened, and it all changed, very quickly. An employee, I don't know that they actually did anything nefarious. I can't remember the details on it, but something happened with an employee doing something, and I believe it was DraftKings site, and then immediately people were like, whoa, wait a second. It was someone that had access to, I think they would have had access to ownership percentages or something prior to lock. And that was deemed as an unfair advantage, which 1,000% would be. Once again, I don't remember all the details on it, but that kind of shifted the whole thing. Now there, it's a little bit different, because you have to play under your name, your username. You have to have ID verification on file for 1099 reporting, Social Security. I don't remember. Yeah, Social Security number for 1099, a whole 9 yards. So the individual user is a whole different story. Now, you could still have, your wife, your aunt, and your uncle text them information. Probably, I'm sure there's still ways to work around it. But they cracked down on that to the point that I believe, once again, I am pretty sure, and if someone remembers, please put it in the comments down below, that basically if you were a DFS employee, you were not allowed to play DFS sports full stop, on your site or anyone else's site. So this is kind of similar to that. But also remember, DFS is regulated to a degree because it falls under sports gambling, kind of. But there is some regulation in that market that does not exist in the sports card world. But with the advent of group submitters, I just don't know how you would enforce that easily. Anyway, once again, anything can be enforced, but I feel like there'd be a million ways to work around it. So, I don't have a great answer for that one, but as always, curious for your thoughts and comments on that one down below as well. With all that being said, that's kind of all the newsy stuff. We'll keep the charts and graphs a little short because we went a little heavy on that side. But I do have a couple things I want to talk about at each major sport. First off, baseball. This was a curveball, pun intended. Topps Chrome is coming out. Topps Chrome Update, let me rephrase, is coming out in December. The Topps Update product itself has been extremely well received. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second, but it is an absolutely loaded product, and it is doing very well in the secondary market, especially on a sealed perspective. and also singles are generally speaking selling pretty well. Julio SSP, I think Raw is doing like the Gatorade Bath one is doing like 250, really cool looking card. And it came out that Update Chrome was coming out, which was no surprise that, everyone knew that this was coming. But in the past, it has always been a Target exclusive. So it was a mega box format. And it was always a Target exclusive. However, what happened just a couple days ago, it was confirmed that this is going to be what's buzzworthy. Chrome updates will drop via both retail, Target, and hobby channels this year. And it is coming next month with all those top rookies and more waiting to be found. So Topps Chrome update, for the first time that I'm aware of, is getting a hobby release format. No details on that yet. We don't know if individual boxes will contain autos or not. No idea on the print run, anything like that. But as we get more information, I'm sure people will do big breakdowns on it. This product will be extremely popular. Extremely popular. I have no idea what box prices will be. Anything like that, like I said. And will they roll out different variations? Will there be different short prints? All that stuff, no idea. We'll have to see once we get more information on the product. But this will be a big, big product to close out the year. Personally speaking, I will probably try to find some boxes of this sealed to buy and sit on. I don't know how many I'll get. I'll have to wait to see what the price is on it, to be honest. That'll kind of dictate some of it. But I would like to get at least a couple boxes just to sit on. I may even get one to rip and do a video on it. We'll see. I feel a lot better ripping Topps/Fanatics products right now than I do Panini products after my run with Panini retail the last couple weeks with the dumpster fire rips that I've had on those, between just not being able to pull anything at all, which is semi-expected, but the quality control is a disaster on those. So this is going to be a big release. It's definitely one to keep your eye on for sure. Diving into market movers, link in the description down below if you want fancy charts and graphs for yourself. First month for $1. Best thing to do is try it out if you're curious. Looking at the sealed wax side of market movers, talking about Topps Update paper. Jumbo boxes are getting a little frisky. I've seen multiple sales at this $279 price point. And then someone will slip one in after for like $250, $260. So they're kind of bouncing around. These initially came out at around $200. You could see here, they're up 28%. I'm not fully in at that 280 number. And what I mean by fully in is like, that's not 100% real number. You could definitely get it cheaper in places, but it is moving quickly at around the 250 price point. You don't see it sit for very long when it gets posted for around that number. So it's probably edging to start to creep up. Now, the curious part will be, does the fact that Update Chrome is getting a hobby release put some pressure on these prices and maybe bring it down a little bit? I don't know. It'll probably depend on what the variation and the short prints look like, if they're absolutely identical or if they do look different. We'll see. The regular hobby boxes are also trending up. They're at a high of 159, but they've been sitting at about 120. Give or take, 125, 120, you could get them at. I got mine at 90 a pop after shipping and tax on Topps' website. So that's kind of like your floor price. But these have been creeping up as well. Not as much as the jumbo boxes have been. I have not messed with any retail. I haven't looked for it, but I've heard the hangers are the one that everyone's chasing on the retail format side. I've watched some breaks and stuff of it, but looking at some individual players, shifting the focus off Update, there was one player that I wanted to kind of sneak a peek at, and that was good old cheater boy, Fernando Tatis Jr. The reason I wanted to look at him is I was just curious if his stuff is kind of stabilized, and it does appear like it has. This is his stuff over the last 60 days. I went with his first Bowman autos in a bunch of different grades. This is a BGS 9.5, a PSA 9, and a PSA 10. And then I just threw in some random Topps Chrome refractors and his rookie auto. BGS 9.5 down 5%, PSA 9 flat, and PSA 10 up 14% on his first Bowman auto. That's over the last 60 days. Honestly, a card staying flat over the last 60 days in this market is kind of a win. So it kind of feels like he is where he is, at least for now. Obviously, larger economic issues and stuff could put downward pressure on that. So who knows? On the Chrome side of things, his X-Fractor also flat, only down about 5%, and his Refractor up slightly at 10%. And then the rookie auto down 37%. There was some weird start and end points on that rookie auto, but it comes in at down 40% from when this was initially ran. So it kind of looks like Tatis Jr. may be flat right now. Does he spike up as we lead into the season? I don't know. He's going to be suspended to start the beginning of the season. I forget exactly how many games he has left on his suspension. But it'll be interesting if that Padres team can ever actually get all its pieces together at the same time and functioning properly. To see Tatis and Soto as a fully operational Death Star, to reuse that joke, will be intriguing. And does the hobby forgive and forget, or do they hold that against him? The fact that his prices are still at this level is interesting, but he is also very injury prone. Let's not forget that as well. There's always seems to be issues with him, as exciting as he is on the field. Let's hop over to football really quickly. Two players I want to look at. Justin Jefferson. He had, one of the best catches. I don't want to call it one of the best ever. It's hard to sit here and say that given the circumstances. But needless to say, it was a freaking amazing catch, and he's had a really good season. This is his card prices going back to the beginning of November, so about a week and a half. This is like the lead up to the catch game, and then beyond that, his Prism Silver. This is raw because there's only been like one PSA 10 sale, so I didn't want to just use a one-off. His raw silver started at $60, is up to $100. That's a 70%, 66% change. His PSA 10 Optic Hollow also up about 65%, and his base Prism from 75 to 130 also up about 65%. So almost across the board, a flat 65% increase, really kind of based on that catch. He's had a real good season. He's had monster games all year long. It was honestly the catch that caused it to spike. I don't know if that drew extra eyeballs also to, what do you know? He's having an amazing season too. We should get some of this guy. We'll be able to tell pretty quickly here. I will be very curious to see if these numbers actually hold. Part of that'll be, obviously how he plays going forward. But this is probably, in all honesty, just a temporary spike. Generally speaking, position players don't perform very well on the secondary market. You can definitely make money on them, but holding for the long term is typically a mistake when it comes to non-quarterbacks in football. It is what it is, but you could definitely get in and out of guys, and flip potential is 100% there. But a lot of this seems catch driven. That concerns me a little bit for these prices actually holding, but time will tell on that one. One other one to pop into, old Josh Allen. Elbow issues, kind of blew that game against the Vikings to a degree through the pick in the end zone. Has really not been playing super well the last couple of weeks. Their game got snowed out against the Browns and is being played in Detroit later today. We'll see how that one goes. He should shred us. The Browns defense sucks right now. I'll be very interested to see how he looks against us, especially on turf. That one could get ugly fast, so maybe these prices rebound. But his stuff has definitely dipped. I went back 30 days on this one. His base Prism down 20%, PSA 10. Optic Hollow down 35%, 36% in a PSA 10. And then I threw in his Select Premier Silver down 50% over the last 30 days. And a lot of that action has happened in the last 14 days. If I just kind of back this up, you can see pretty big drops just in the last 2 weeks, 20%, 22%, 20%. So half of that has happened in the last week or two, with a lot of that really taking a dive almost in the last 7 days to even get on a more micro level. The narrative has kind of shifted on him a little bit as this season has kind of gone on. Let's close out on basketball really quickly. We are going to talk about the hottest player in the league, and then the one player. This one player. Best. If you bought at the National, this was one of the best investments you could have made in sports cards. I will give you a guess. Guess in the comments down below. It's an NBA player, rookie from the last couple of years, Prism Silver. If you would have walked around the National and bought at comps as many as you can get your hands on, you could retire today. Who is the player? Before we get to that player, it's not SGA. We're going to talk about SGA first, and then we're going to hop into that player. So give you a little bit of time to guess. SGA has been on a friggin' tear. This is a Silver Prism PSA 10. We'll look at some other stuff here in a second. This is up 22%. I'm going back 14 days. Really, all this has happened in the last 7, to be fair, but I like seeing the lead up to it. This card was basically sitting at $400 to slightly above $400 since the season started. And then it's just taken off. You could see November 13th, it was $395. There was a low sale at $366. Went up to $435, $445, $480, and climbing. He has been wrecking people lately. Just eviscerating people. Game-winning threes, 30, 40-point games, bunch of other stats. The Thunder are actually playing halfway decent. The fear always with him, I've always liked SGA. The fear is that the Thunder would shut him down. I think the Thunder might be a little too good this year to do that. I think they might just kind of run it out. This is also without Chet, as he's out for the year. But they have a boatload of draft picks already. All the teams that were supposed to tank for Victor Wembanyama are all playing really, really well. Kind of funny that way. But we'll see where his stuff goes. Fantastic player. The only thing that was ever holding him back was the Thunder keeping him on the bench. Here's some other SGA stuff. I just ran a general price movements chart. You could just kind of scroll down here. It is green for days. These are a bunch of different, it's numbered cards, all sorts of nonsense on here. We're not going to look at these on an individual basis, but I just kind of wanted to show you all the green on his chart because he's just been going up, and away. Okay, guessing time is over. I don't want to say the best because I haven't looked at every player, but one of the best players you could have bought at the National and sold today, the man, the myth, the legend, Bull. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Bull on fire. PSA 10 base prisms. At and around the National at the end of August, we have $35. $35. 2 sales on that date. They spiked up to 57. What do we got there? 50. Back down to 45. There's one at $20. Whoo boy. There's one at 42. Today, $100. 191% return from the $35 price points they were at or around the National. Even if you bought it $50 a pop, which would have been high, you would easily double your money across the board. You'd be swimming in bowls right now. Jokes aside, he is actually playing pretty good. He's putting up some very fun numbers. The Magic are not a good basketball team right now, but he is actually playing pretty well out there. Look Victor Wembanyama mini out there running around, nailing threes, coast to coast. We'll see where his prices go. The hobby just adores this guy for some reason. It is encouraging both on the SGA side and the Bull side. More so the SGA side, that, a player is playing as well as he is, outperforming expectations, and the market's adjusting to it and giving him a proper bump up for it. A 20% bump based off of what he's done so far this year on a Silver Prism. Not a super low pop card, but not super rare either. Or not super readily available either. That card's gotten a nice little 20% increase as well as he's playing. Feels normal. Feels like the way it should work, if that makes sense. If this was the 2021, 2020 market where everything was nutty, this card would have 10x'd. It'd be like a $20,000 card. I'm joking. But this card would have tripled in value based off of what he's doing right now if we were peak of the market. But a 20% increase on him just shredding the league feels completely normal to me. That's all I have for you boys and girls today. Probably ran a little long. That's okay. Smash the like button if you have it. Any comments or questions, leave them down below. Catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.